Hello all, and welcome back to the radio shop. And on the bench today is the Icom Ic 745 HF transceiver. And I wanted to continue this series and do a few more things. I think can't we cover a few things that I haven't found posted but in one place. Now, when this radio came out back many years ago, it was a really great unit when it hit the market, and Icom listed this as a all-mode transceiver. We're looking here at the listing here from Universal Radio. We weren't able to find the original brochure that Icom had put out when they introduced this radio into the market, but you can see here underneath of it the features, and the first thing on the top of the list, it says all mode. Well, not quite. Now the radio itself, if we zoom in here, we can see that it has lower sideband, upper sideband, CW, RTTY, AM, FM, and we are in the FM mode on 40 meters. And we'll back down, we'll look at the watt meter, and I'll just flip the transmit switch, and you see we have power out. Now you see we are in FM. I'll switch over to AM, and just so you can see, it's in the AM mode. And we'll flip the transmit switch, and we have nothing. You can see the transmit indicator come on, but there's no power output on AM. Now, why would you call this an all mode radio when you have emitted AM transmit? Well, very interesting. So today what we want to do is see, can't we fix this problem? Well, we're looking at a web page here that belongs to a guy named Paul. His call sign is N2FAN. Well, he came up with a modification to enable the AM transmit, and you can see that's his name and call sign here, and I'll leave a link to this website down below if you click on the show more tab. So we'll go through this here and see, can't we get AM transmit to work on the Icom Ic 745. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you, this modification is not a snip and clip modification. There's quite a bit of work to be done just to enable AM transmit. There's no magic wire you go in here and clip to turn it on. The main board over here is lacking the circuit to enable the AM and to unmute the AM modulation. So to do this mod, you're going to need a few components. And what we have here is a 2N3904. We have 3 10K resistors, and we have 8 1N914 diodes. And all these parts have to go inside this main board on this radio to even get the AM to work. There's also going to be several parts that we will remove and reuse in this Icom 745. So along with these parts, there's several parts that's going to be repurposed that we will be removing. Now, if you try this modification, I will tell you you're doing so at your own risk. Like I say, this modification will require some little bit of skills in electronics and some soldering and following schematics. So if you do so and you blow your radio up, you have done that at your own risk. Now after you get the covers off the radio, the first thing you'll need to do is go ahead and remove this main unit. Now there's 5 screws holding this unit, one in each corner, and there's one right here in the middle. And the reason why we need to remove this is that there's going to be, like I said, some components that's got to be removed. There'll be components mounted to the bottom of this board, and there'll be some jumper wires added. So it's a whole lot easier to go ahead and do this with it out of the radio. Now there's lots of connectors in this radio, and you'll see quite a few of them look the same. I mean, just looking down here at the front board here, you'll see these 2 connectors right here are identical, and they can plug into either socket. Even this one here is the same as these 2. So you really need to mark these connectors real good so you can remember where they go. Let's say J21 right here. It's marked 56, but it goes into J21. You know, it would have been nice if they would have just had J21 written on here, but they did not do it like that. So, you know, be aware that you can get these connectors back in the wrong place and your radio is not going to function correctly. So go ahead and mark everything, take some pictures, and get to know a little bit about where these connectors come from before you go pulling this board out. So I'll go ahead and get all the connectors off, remove this screw, and we'll get the main board out. As you can see, I have the main board out of the IC 745, and again, that was a lot of connectors to disconnect. You also notice that the wire harnesses here, the connectors almost fall in place to where they're supposed to be, so that will help you a lot too, so you don't get them mixed up as bad. Again, marking these and, you know, remembering where they came from is the best bet. Okay, I got the main board out. I said that was a bit of a chore getting all these connectors off, and I've got it mounted up here in the panel vise, so this makes it easier to hold the board and work on it. And, you know, we can loosen it up and flip it over or turn it around or whatever to work on the back side. So yeah, this really helps having this to work on this with. Now you need to remember this is the front that went towards the front of the radio with all your connectors on the end. So here we're showing a list of all voltage sources that we'll be having to tie to. We have R8, which is your 8-volt receive mode source, AM8, which is your AM mode voltage source, FM, CW, RTTY, upper and lower sideband. So when we know where all those is at. And where you find them at is on J7. The first 2 pins is AM. The 3rd and 4th pins will be RTTY. The 5th pin is upper sideband. The 6th pin is lower sideband. 7th and 8th pin are CW. And the last pins is FM. And we also have the R8 source here, which is J21. Now all these are tied together on the board, but there's 4 wires that come out of this plug and run to different places. So the first thing we need to do to get started on this is locate D44. And if you're looking at the connector end and you come over, you'll find D44 right about here. And I'll zoom in on that a little bit. This is D44 sitting down here. And what we need to do is lift the anode end of D144 or D44 out. So we'll have an exposed hole and we'll have the anode end of the D44 sticking up. And the reason why we got to do this is that to get this to work in AM, we got to enable B plus to the product detector and the 9 megahertz BFO oscillator. So the 9 megahertz oscillator will be working for AM transmit as well as the BFO receive. So what we need to do is go ahead and get D44 pulled up on this end. And just to show you here on the schematic, we can see D44 here is tied up to I think it's Q39, but the other end of D44 is tied to AM8, and by lifting up this anode of D44 we create a break in that trace, so we can build another circuit to go in there for a switch. Okay, as you can see now, D44 is now up, the banded end. Cathode is still down, and you can see the hole right down there by my finger where this end of the diode come out of. And what I've done is just stood the diode straight up off the board. That is now going to become a tie point here and the existing hole. Now the existing hole goes to AM8. So now we're going to build up a little circuit here to connect to that. So looking here for our circuit description, we'll use the 2N3904, a 10K resistor, and a 1N914 diode. The collector of the transistor will go to the hole that the anode of D44 came out of. This will go to AM8, and as you can see where the anode of D44 was. The emitter will actually tie to the anode of D44, and then we'll have to run a 10K resistor and a 1N914 diode from the base of that transistor to R8, which is our 8-volt source. Okay, so this is the circuit that we'll be adding in. This is the 2N3904. We have the emitter, base, and the collector. On the base we have a 10K resistor and a 1N914 diode. Now the banded end is pointing towards the resistor, so the cathode is connected to the resistor. This end of the diode will go off to R8. These two leads, the emitter and the collector, will go into the hole where D44 was removed, and to the other end, the anode end of D44. So we'll put some heat shrink over this and then bend this up so this can be wired off to R8. The way this board is laid out, there's just no way to get holes through the bottom of it to run all the leads out, so we will have to run some jumper wires. Okay, I have a modified circuit here done, and you can see this is the transistor. The collector goes through the hole, the emitter ties up and goes to the anode of D44, and I put a little heat shrink on it. Now the collector has the 10K and the 914 diode on it. I'm going to snake it around to clear this connector here, and brought it right on over using a brown wire, which is the same color as the R8 wires in this radio. There was already a hole here in the board, so I just slipped this wire through that hole and tack soldered it to the bottom of J21, which is right here. This is our R8 source. So that part of the modification is now complete. Okay, the next part of the process in step 2 is to go in and locate R66, and we'll remove it from the circuit. We'll put it on the bottom of the board, and we'll connect 2 1N914 diodes in it. Now the purpose for this is to change the way the mode select switch works. When you go to AM mode, it turns off the mic shunt in the AM mode, so no audio passes. So we got to have audio passing, and by doing that we'll do this modification to R66, which will change the mode selection process so the audio can now go through the circuit like it should, and it will pass through the balance modulator before it shunt, so it can't go to the balance modulator. So this modification will take care of that. So if we take a look at the schematic here, we see R66 right here, and its purpose, what it does is that when you switch to AM, it shunts the audio to keep the audio from going into the balance modulator. Now we're going to remove this R66, and that'll take it out of the shunt, and then we're going to take this R66 and we're going to tie it back to this circuit, but we're going to bring two 1N914 diodes off of it, so it'll switch the audio in and out when AM is selected. Okay, I now have R66 removed, and this right down here beside Q13. Now the silk screening on the board is not available to be seen for R66. So when you go hunting for it, it's going to be a little hard. But it's the resistor, it's a 10K resistor that's laying horizontal on the board. Let me see if I can zoom into it. I had to cut the tie wraps on this here to be able to get down here to it. But you can see that's Q13 and there's R66 right in front of it. And it's the one that's laying flat, not the one that's standing up. That's R63, but R66 is the one that's laying flat down. And what we're going to do is take R66 and move it to the bottom of the board and solder it at the junction of R23 and R30. So I have R66 right here. As you can see, it's a 10K. Now the information said you need 3 10K resistors, so I'm pretty sure that this is one that they're referring to, so you might not have to go out and buy 3 10K resistors if you're doing this. Now to let you know, I have never performed this modification before, so what you're seeing here, you're seeing it as I'm seeing it, and I'm locating all the parts, you know, as I'm going along, and none of this is being pre-rehearsed or pre-recorded. I'm just going through the modification and recording it at the same time. So what you see is what I see. So with R66 removed, we got to go back under the board and tie it to the same rail that R23 and R30 is on. So if we follow this end up, and we'll come up to right here, and there's R23. We go back down and follow this trace over, there's R30. So we'll have to look for those 2 resistors and do a continuity test from one hole to one end of R23 or R30. That'll let us know that we're on the right side of that track, and that's where we'll solder our resistor at. Now I think a much easier way of finding that out is R66 is tied directly to the base of Q13, so we know that's not the end that we want. It'll be the other end, and we should be able to look right on the board and see it tied to the base of Q13. So looking at the bottom of the board here, we can see the holes here where R66 was. We follow this trace here right on up. This is Q13 right here, and that's the base of Q13. So that's the end that we don't want to connect to. So what we want to do is solder our 10K resistor to this end. Okay, so here I have our resistor standing straight up. hooked to the board, and what we're going to do, we're going to come off with 2 diodes, and those diodes are going to go to CW8 and RY8, and that's on J21, so it's right here. So we don't have a lot of run here to make, so we can get this diode flat, and we'll probably put some tape or something here on the board and lay it down, and then just wire the 2 diodes to the 2 correct pins where it goes here. I'm sorry I won't show in the connector, but there's the connector right here. That's J21. So again, anode to CW8 on one diode, and the anode to RY8 on the other diode. So here we're seeing J21. This is pin 1. Yeah, this is pin 1. That's pin 10. So one of the diodes is going to go to RY8, which is going to be pins 3 and 4. So that's pins 3 and 4 right here. The other diode is going to go to CW8, so that should be pins 7 and 8 up here. So we'll just jump these diodes from here to here, and then we'll put some tape under this to keep it from shorting to the board. Not very hard, huh? Okay, so here we have step 2 complete. We have the resistor tied in to the correct location, and off the other end we have the 2 diodes going to CW8. I mounted them on this side instead of over here at the pins, just the way that the layout works right. This pin 7 and 8 snakes around here and comes through here and goes to here, so I soldered it to this point here. And RY8, it comes around, goes to this joint, so I just put it here. That keeps the leads from being so long. So all I got to do now is just slide a piece of tape under this, and that'll keep it from shorting out on the board. So yeah, not hard at all. Just little time consuming, you know, just laying everything out. But step 2 is now complete. And as you can see, we now have some tape underneath of that, and that'll keep anything from shorting to the board and hold everything in place. Won't have to worry about this side of it. The standoffs are about 3/8 of an inch off the board. Plus, you know, there's already some components and some shields that are mounted to the bottom of the board, so you know we got plenty good clearance under there. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So for part 3, what we got to do is put B+ to the mic, amp, and the box circuits. And to do that, this is J7. I got the board turned around the other way this time because it's easy to see. And if we look right here by Q19, you'll see D15. Right down under there. Let me use this in, maybe you see it a little better. And what we're going to do is tie a 1N914 diode, the cathode end, to the cathode of D15, and then that's just going to jump right over and tie into AM8 of J7, which would be the first 2 pins here. So just a diode right across here on the bottom side, and that way it'll turn the mic amp and box circuits on when you go into AM mode. Okay, so step 3 is now complete. We have the cathode tied to the cathode of D15, and we have the anode connected to AM8 on J7, which is pin 1 and 2. Okay, our next step, which is step 4, is to remove R31. And we're going to remove R31 and move it to the bottom of the board, and then we're going to drop 3 1N914 diodes to LSB, USB, and FM8 on J7. Now what this does when you go to the AM mode, it turns Q8 off, which is your balance modulator switch. And the reason why you want to turn Q8 off is so that it unbalances the balance modulator. Now this gives you full carrier in AM operation. Okay, looking at the board, got the board turned around again. J7 is on this end. R31 is going to be right here on the edge. R29 is right beside it. Q8 is right here. And you can see R29 silk screen on this end. R31 is silk screen just on the side over here, right by W51, which is a piece of wire with a ferrite around it. And this is the one you're going to remove. It's right here. So we'll go ahead and get that one out. Okay guys, so R31 is lifted. And the other end has a wire going to it. So, you know, you're connecting R31 back to the junction of the base of Q8. So it comes through here, and then we have 3 diodes, and the 3 diodes cathodes connect to R31 by this jumper wire. As you see, all 3 of them are tied together here. And then you have one that goes down to FM8, and then you have one that goes to LSB8 and USB8, and that will complete this section for the mic amp stage. Like I say, a lot of diodes, but hey, we're getting there. We got one more step to complete on this part, and then there is a power mod step, and I don't know if we'll use that, because you can use the power control on the front of the radio, so we might omit that step. Basic thing we want to do is get this thing transmitting on AM. Okay, in step 5, what we want to do is enable the 9 megahertz CW crystal to generate the correct frequency for AM. And by doing this, we'll remove R24, which is right down in here, and we're going to use the last diode to connect it to AM8. So when you go to AM, it will bring up the 9 megahertz CW crystal, and that'll generate our center frequency for AM. Okay, so I have R24 removed, and we want to connect the cathode end of the diode to the hole that R65 way over here by the X1 is connected to. So instead of coming all the way over here where R24 is, we're going to go on the back side of the board. There's a yellow wire that runs down here right beside R24. In fact, it's connected to R24, and it snakes all the way around and connects right down here at the bottom of this resistor pack in front of J7, and you'll see the yellow wire right here at the end of it. So let's see if we can get a better view of that. That's the yellow wire right here. You can see what R24 was. Well, that's connected to this end of it towards J7, but it snakes right on around and comes right on over here. You can see it right behind this green wire here. You can see that yellow wire right down there. It goes into a sorter pad right at the end of this resistor network. So we're going to tie our cathode to our diode here and run it over here to J21, which is AM8. Okay, so we have a our diode in with the cathode on the R65 side, and we'll come over here to J21 and have that anode attached to R8. So this should, or AM8, excuse me. So that should complete the AM transmit modification. The only thing be left to do was to do the power mod. But before I do the power mod, I want to get the board back reinstalled in the radio. And let's test it out and see if I got this right. Okay, so I'm going back checking my work and I made a boo-boo. Yep, that happens. When I removed R24 and connected this to R65, the cathode end of this diode, and I connected it to R8, does not connect to R8. That was the mistake. It's supposed to connect to AM8, which is the #1 pin, I do believe. Yes, AM8 is the #1 pin of J7. So yeah, I made a mistake there, so I got to change that back around. Okay, so now we have it tied into the correct location. I don't know why I tied it into R8 instead of AM8, but it's tied into the right location now. So now it's time to put this back in the radio. I've looked it over, looks like everything is right, and we'll see what it does. Well guys, this took probably 4 or 5 hours to go through, doing it straight for the first time and finding all the locations and all the parts on the board. The service manual PDF that I have, I do not have the original service manual here in the shop. I'm not sure if I left it at work or if it's somewhere hidden in the house, but the PDF is just terrible. You cannot read no designators on the PDF for parts, where parts is. So I had to sit here and virtually search, look at the schematic and search for every part that was in here that we had to touch, which took some time to do. But anyway, the radio is all back together. After we test it, make sure it works, and I need to come back and put some tie wraps on these wires up here. But we'll go ahead and we'll turn the radio on. Well, if I hit the right button. I get so used to flipping the switch. And I do that all the time on these 745s. You got a push button for the power and then a flip switch for transmit. You know, you get working with those tube radios, you always got a flip switch, and there's one conveniently right there on this side where the power button normally would be. But anyway, let's see, we're on 28 megahertz. We're in the AM mode. We're into the dummy load. There's the power meter. I've got the power about halfway. So we'll reach over and we'll flip the transmit switch and see if we get any RF output power on AM. And yes, we do. Okay, I rolled the power up just a little bit. And there we are, we have RF output on AM. Let me try a different band. We'll roll down here to 14 megahertz. And yes, we have RF out power, put power there. We'll go on down here to 40 meters. We got power there. And we'll go on down here to 80 meters. And we have power there. Okay, so 80 meters, AM into the dummy load, microphone connected. We'll see if we are passing any transmit audio. Test 1, 2. and you can see the meter moving, and we are passing audio. Okay guys, I got the lights cut off and I got the RF demodulator box connected to the oscilloscope, and also on the spectrum analyzer, and we just wanted to look at the signal just to see what it looks like. I don't have everything matched and dialed in and set up to make perfect measurements. I'll do that later by using the Rigol equipment, but I just want to get a look at the modulated waveform and stuff. So here we go, we'll key it up, and my scope is not the scope, but the we're tracking we'll get the spectrum analyzer dialed in on center. We can see the upper and lower side bands on the side. You can see the RF carrier, and you can see the modulation line riding on top of it. And it really doesn't look too bad. What we need to do is inject tones into the microphone and look at it. Then look at it in XY mode. You got to remember now, the power mod has not been done, and I don't think I'm going to do it because I can adjust the power with the front button. So you see I got the power turned way down, and we can bring it back up. So yeah, it doesn't look too bad at all. Okay, so I could have left the lights on and just changed all the settings in the cameras, but I didn't want to do that. It's just easy to turn the lights off to better see the old CRT displays. But anyway, looks like this modification works okay. I just need to go in now and tie wrap the wires back to the board like they're supposed to be, and put the rest of the screws in it. So yeah, it works. Big thank you to Paul N2FAN for writing that document many years ago. I think he released that document about 7 years after this radio had came out. Better late than never, but here it is, 30 years later. We have proved it out, and it works real good. Anyway guys, I'll leave the link to Paul's webpage, and also we'll put some information on my website, and I'll leave a link down below for that also. And I'll get some pictures on how this is done and everything, so give me a few days for all that. Like I say, I jumped on this today, and you saw it as I saw it. Came through and it works. Had that one boo-boo, got that fixed, and it looks good. No problems at all. So I'd like to hear your comments down below. Click the show more tab for the links, and we'll see you in the next video now. Bye.